What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react to some of the dumbest things that Americans have ever said to Canadians. So, today, I want to take a look at some of these examples of just some of the stupidest things that my fellow Americans have actually said about Canada. So, I understand that, us Americans have a pretty bad reputation for saying stupid things or being ignorant, not understanding how the world works, or even being rude. So today, I want to take a look at these and hopefully even set the record straight on some of this. So let's take a look. Starting with, it says, I, an American, got accepted into grad school at Western, then called the University of Western Ontario. Okay. On a couple of occasions, when I told people about this, their response was, Ontario? Is that near Toronto? Oh no. Oh no. I mean, kind of, but also, wow. This one makes me squirm a little bit because I was definitely one of those Americans, like for sure. I have learned about this stuff, certainly embarrassingly recently in my adult life, but I was one of these Americans who didn't know anything about Canadian geography or the map of Canada or where your cities are. And most of all, I think, like most Americans, what all the Canadian cities are called. And I remember not knowing the difference between Ontario and Toronto. And it's like, is Toronto like a state? Or then it's like, no, in Canada there's provinces, and then no again, that's a city. It's like, oh, gee. And now I know Toronto is in Ontario, but for the vast majority of my life, and I don't think I'm a particularly like stupid American. Man, don't comment on that. By the way, I don't think I need to maintain that thought in my mind. Um, and yet, growing up, like I don't remember learning much of anything about uh, what stuff in Canada was called or the cities or where. But now, in hindsight, now that I know, it'd be like somebody saying, "L.A., Los Angeles, isn't that near California?" Or worse, or actually, it'd be worse. It'd be California. Isn't that near LA? And for Americans, for us, it'd be like jaw dropping. Like, so I totally understand why this is stupid. Why Canadians can think it's stupid because it is. Oh boy. Moving on. This says I was on a flight from Atlanta to Toronto. The lady sitting next to me was very Midwest. She told me it's her first time flying to Canada. Oh, okay. American traveling to Canada for the first time. She had friends that lived between Toronto and Ottawa. She asked if we use the British pound for currency. Um, yeah, these are so bad, but as an American, like I have an American brain. I understand. Because again, I understand now there's the Canadian dollar. That's a whole thing. I didn't know that for a long time as well. And believe me, there's lots of American adults my age and older who don't know this stuff still. Luckily, I understand you have the Canadian dollar. which yeah, would surprise a lot of Americans actually, because I think most of us assume you have a different currency. We're just not sure what it is called. But it's just simply the Canadian dollar, just like the U.S. dollar, Canadian dollar. The British pound. She thinks Canada uses the British pound. That's a whole other problem. And I think it's particularly problematic when you are an American already on a plane. Yeah, you are on the flight currently to Canada and you don't know what the currency is? You think it's the British pound? I mean, Canada and Great Britain have a historical relationship, but no, it's not. It's not like that anymore. No. So the Canadian replied, "No, we have Canadian dollars," and the American replied, "Do you drive on the left side of the road?" How are you? How? It's embarrassing not to know this. Just as a like a any American citizen, but to be traveling to Canada and not know this. That's I think egregiously bad. That's extra bad. The Canadian who's giving a whole Canada culture lesson on the flight says, "No, no, no. We drive on the same side as Americans. But are you a British colony? Oh my God. Is this person like trapped in like 1483? So then the Canadian responded, so was America at one point, and you don't use the British pound or drive on the left side of the road. And yeah, that's a good way to put it. No kidding. And oh my, this American just won't stop. They are on a mission to annoy this Canadian on the flight, and they're trapped on the flight together. Oh, did you fight Britain for your freedom like America did? Da 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 da. No, no, no. We just asked nicely, and they let us go. I've actually thought about how that is like incredible, and isn't that like sort of the story of history for most countries that were British colonies or associated with Great Britain? I think for most of them, just time went on and they just said, we're not part of you anymore. Bye. And Great Britain was like, okay, fine. It's like the United States. I'm sure there must be others, but the only one I am aware of, obviously, that had a whole war for independence against Great Britain. And it's just funny how all of us British colonies sort of ended up in the same place with our independence and our freedom and separation and completely different ways. That's funny and something that I think a lot of Americans don't think about. But I guess it's kind of cool that I mean, it's not cool people died, but it's cool we maybe did that or, to stand up for what you believe in. And maybe that has something to do with like the American temperament that we have to this day. We're a little edgy because I don't know. But that is interesting. Okay, this says, I had coworkers from Paris set an online meeting for 6 p.m. I had to explain that 6 p.m. in Toronto is not 6 p.m. in Calgary or Vancouver. Really? So, like Europeans? A coworker in Paris who was American. Okay. Doesn't understand time zones? Doesn't understand time zones? Doesn't the US and Canada like share many time zones? And most Americans are very aware that we have different time zones. Like, what? And then you start working out of Paris, like remote, and with Canadians, and suddenly you don't understand the concept of time zones? They exist in the US, but not in Canada. Yeah. Brilliant. Oh my goodness. Okay. This says, an American said, oh no, this is a Canadian telling this story. I was in California years ago. and met some Americans who asked where I'm from. I said, I'm from Alberta, Canada. And they asked where that is. I said, it's north of Montana. Then they asked where Montana is. That's when I realized how clueless Americans can be. I'm going to be very, very honest right now. I don't know exactly where Montana is. I vaguely know where Montana is, but if you pulled up a map of the United States, I could screw it up. And maybe, I don't know, like, maybe this is my American pride here. It is at stake, or my dignity, but I'm going to argue and say it's difficult to remember exactly where all 50 of the states are located. That is difficult to do, and we learn it in school and throughout your life. But I would say 99% of Americans couldn't label a map of the U.S. A blank map, all 50 states, couldn't do it. I can't do it. Okay, call us clueless if you want. Yes, it's embarrassing we don't know every part of our own country, but Canada, like, you only have so many provinces and territories. It's a little easier arguing a little for me here than the 50 states that we got to do. It's a nightmare, and it never ends, and most of us don't get there. Yeah, and if that makes us clueless, so be it. But yeah, I'm guilty. And it's Montana. Who knows about Montana? What's going on there? Okay, I was sitting in my office in Toronto on the phone with a vendor in Florida. It was, God, it must be fascinating, entertaining for Canadians who have to work and call Americans. Oh man, this is a story where they were on the phone with a vendor in Florida, American. It was mid-January, -20 in Toronto, I guess Celsius. She says, the vendor in Florida, the American says, horrified, "Are you guys gonna be okay up there? I heard it got so cold that the temperature went backwards." I've never heard anyone say that ever. What a phrase. That should be a phrase. It got so cold the temperature turned backwards. like negative. It was going 1, 2, 3, 4, but then it started going backwards. 3, 2, 1, 0, and then -1, 2, 3. What's going on? Yeah, here in the U.S., for a lot of states, certainly Florida. Oh, okay, we're talking about an American in Florida, where it's like beautiful weather all the time. They don't understand the concept of negative degrees or just cold weather in general. I don't know, but maybe this is also like a Celsius misunderstanding, because it feels like you guys get into negative temperature with Celsius more frequently. You know what I mean? It's not as common for a cold temperature in the U.S. to be a negative number, because even like 10 degrees Fahrenheit is really, really cold, and I think that would be a negative number, a negative Celsius temperature. So anyway, there's a lot of positive Fahrenheit temperatures that would be negative numbers in Celsius. That's what I'm trying to say, and maybe Americans don't understand that, especially Floridians. Okay. This says, I worked at a hotel inside a national park in the Canadian Rockies when I was in my 20s. My hotel was a common stop on the way up to Alaska. Okay. I had a very long conversation with some American bikers about why they needed Canadian currency even if they were just passing through. Okay. Well, you're in a foreign country. You need to use the local currency. That's common sense. What do you mean? Wait, so they're just arguing why Why do we need to use Canadian money when we're in Canada? That's what they're. I also had a set of tourists from the UK who expected to just go over to Toronto the next day, make it to Montreal. I asked where they're flying out of, and their jaws dropped. They couldn't believe they couldn't just drive the distance in a few hours and get to all the Canadian hotspots. I don't know how many. I have so many stories like this from working in that national park. Um, I think a lot of Americans don't even realize how big Canada is. I don't know the distance from Toronto to Montreal or how often you guys have to fly, but Canada is like obviously roughly the same width as the United States. You're on top of us. So I would think most Americans would understand Canada is at least big. It's funny that people from the UK, where like the UK, you can drive so many places in one day. There, it's small. It's like the size of one province or less, I think. So that's funny and kind of understandable in a way. But anyway, um, this was uh, this was this was something. Yeah, it's obviously entertaining and funny, but also kind of it's embarrassing, and to me, frustrating just to see how ignorant Americans are of Canada. Because and I think I could say that because I was one of those Americans, and now I know more about Canada so that it's not embarrassing. It's only kind of embarrassing for me. So, anyway, if you enjoyed this, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment with your thoughts on any of these stupid things that Americans have said about Canada. That'd be fun to hear about. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Canada and seeing Canadian things that I've never seen before, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching and see you next time.